Just kidding. Yeah. But anyways,
somebody there saying,
yeah, probably. All right. Anyway. Yeah. So that was how they knew that, or one of the sources of location. But it says, anyways, by Shiloh, whoever can see the Mishkan over there, Kachikam, Maisashenik, B'chal Roya, and Yerushalayim Lifnei Minachayim. However, Yerushalayim can only be eaten within the walls of the Azara. The Kachim, Kachim, Nechlin Lifnei Minakiloyim. But when it comes to Kachim, such as Zachatas or those types of Karbanos that are more severe, then those can only be eaten within the curtains of the Mikdash. Fine. And therefore, so that had to be right within the courtyard. The other one was within Yerushalayim and Kedusha Shiloh. When it comes to Kedusha Shiloh, Yesh Achrei Heter. The Kedusha Yerushalayim Ein Achrei Heter. The Bamas, right? The after Shiloh, those were still permitted. However, once they came to Yerushalayim and they built the Beis Hamikdash, then there was no Ein Achrei Heter. There was no Heter afterwards for Bamas. There was no Heter afterwards Bamas. So there's two differences between Yerushalayim and Shiloh in terms of the location of Kachikalim and Ma'aser Sheni, and also whether Bamas were permitted after the destruction or the taking down of the Mishkan in the Beis Hamikdash. Fine. Zok the Gemara. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak Shemati Mishem Makribin beBeis Chanya Bizman Hazeh. So it says Rabbi Yitzchak, I heard that they offered in Beis Chanya, which it was Mizbech that he built, which is the son of Shimon Tzaddik, and he built a bam in Yerushalayim l'shem Shemayim. So he heard that even afterwards the bias they offered over there. So first of all, Ksaver Beis Chanya, top of Yeraman Alav Beis Avazari. First of all, it couldn't have been a house of Azar because then you wouldn't be able to offer it. Also, he heard one thing: it was not a Beis Avazari. Ksaver Kedusha Rishayna Kicha L'Shaita Kicha L'Asilava. Right, and the Kedusha of Yerushalayim, which in the Beis Hamikdash stood, once it was destroyed, then they didn't have the same Kedusha, and since they didn't have the Kedusha anymore, so therefore Bamos now were permitted outside of Yerushalayim because Yerushalayim wasn't, considered to be the place anymore. The Chesiv, as the Pasuk says, because he didn't arrive, the Bamos are still permitted because he didn't come to the Menucha, Menucha is the Shiloh, and Nachla is the Yerushalayim, and Menucha is referring to Shiloh. And because he didn't come to Shiloh yet, he didn't come to Yerushalayim, so therefore Bamas are mutter. So Makish Nachla Menucha. So therefore we make a comparison between Nachla Menucha. Ma Menucha Yesh Achrei Heter. Just like after Shiloh was destroyed, then there was a Heter to use Bamos. Af Nachla, so too when Yerushalayim was destroyed, Yesh Achrei Heter. After Yerushalayim was destroyed, there was a Heter. Right. So Amrullah. So first of all, he said to him, right. This is the first. Yeah. But now it's funny. Alan points out this is a happening. So let's see. So Amrullah Amarta, did you say this? Amrullah, no, I didn't say this. So even according to the one this is what he's saying. I didn't say this. Amarava, right? My goodness, Amrav right? You taught it. You told to us, and you would learn it from it. My time a kahada, right? Why was the chayes? Kasha the Rav Mari, because of the kasha of Rav Mari. The Ma'aser Rav Mari has a kasha kedushas Shiloh. Yesh achrei heter kedushas Yerushalayim ein achrei heter. First of all, it says beferish. That he says that Kedusha Shiloh, there is a heter of Bamos afterwards, but once Yerushalayim was built, right, obviously Bamos were forbidden then, and once it was destroyed, it was continued to be forbidden. And furthermore, Tanan, Mishabol Yerushalayim, Nasra Bamos, when they came to Yerushalayim, right, the Bamos were forbidden, V'lo lahem od heter. There was no more permission to go do it. And this was referred to in the pasuk, right? The Yerushalayim. Once you come to Yerushalayim, that's it, right? You can Bamos, right. Once you get to Yerushalayim, once he goes to the Beis Hamikdash, then Bamos are now off the table. There's only Yerushalayim and the Beis Hamikdash. So the Gemara says, okay, maybe Lamai says tonight. It's Machlokes tonight. Now we learn in the Mishnah. Rabbi Eliezer Shemati Shahayu Boyd in Behechal. I heard when they were building the temple, I sing Kalayim Lahechal, the Kalayim Lazar. They made the Kalayim for the Heichal, right? They made it for the inner part, the Heichal, and also Kilayim Lazara, and also for the courtyard. There were curtains for the courtyard for construction. They built, they put up curtains and they built around them. So Elosh Heichal Bainim B'chus. In the Heichal, right? They put up the curtains and they built the wall outside the curtains. In other words, so the curtains basically were between the wall and then that which was inside, right? The Kachim.
This is In the course of the building?
Yes, the course of the building, right? And Uvazara, and they would build the walls of the courtyard, binding mibifnim. In other words, they put up the curtains and then they built the walls within. The Amar Rabbi Shua, and further, and so that was Rabbi Eliezer. And then Amar Rabbi Shua, Shematik Shemakrivin Avabish Shein Bayis, right? I heard, right, that when they were going ahead and building the bayis, so they were eating kachi kachim, even though there were the base image wasn't completed yet, right? Even though they didn't have the official curtains, right? They just had these temporary shades up, right? And kachi kalam, even though there's no wall around there. Why? Because when they're building the Bayis Sheni, right? Because they already had all the kedusha from the first, from the kedusha Rishona, and therefore that stood. So they didn't, right? In other words, they were able to go ahead and eat kachi kalam, kachi kachim, able to eat all that because the kedusha was already still there. And that was Rabbi Shua. The Rabbi Eliezer said, like it must be that he held that kedusha was lasilava. Therefore, the other opinion Rabbi Eliezer must have held that there was only kadosh when the bayis stood, but once the bayis was destroyed, then it was done.
Oh, was Rabbi Eliezer talking about Bayis Sheni, and therefore is that the kasha?
So right.
He shouldn't have had to put up the climb because the kedusha was already there.
So according to Rabbi Eliezer, right, it must be why do they have the curtains, right? It must be because the curtains were now effectively new walls of a Bayis Sheni. And therefore, this creates the kedusha for the heter. But Rabbi Shua didn't need it.
He didn't need it.
So, but however, the Gemara reflects. Amalei Ravina, Rav Ashi, Mimai. Who says this is the case? Dilma du kolei alma kedusha rishayna kicha l'shaitza kicha lasilavo. Maybe the kedusha rishayna stood forever and ever. In other words, there was no lack of kedusha there. Umar mashmilei kamar, umar mashmilei kamar. And each one said what he told. I heard they had curtains. There was one on the inside, one on the outside. Nothing to do with the fact whether they're allowed to eat kachi kalam or kachi kachim. I just heard that this is what happened, right? That's the case. Why they had the kilayim at all? So let's use the bialma. Maybe it was just to cover privacy. Malcolm Kadosh, cover up. It was not nice to have it completely nigla. Ella, right? Hani tonight. Maybe it's this machlokes tonight about kedusha whether it continues or not. The Tanya writes Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosi says Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosi, Lama manu chachamim es elu. Why did the chachamim go ahead and count these cities? Right, the cities that they were mentioned in the last parak in Erchin, right, regarding Bate Arichom, right, regarding how cities one goes ahead and sells and how a city in a house. A house in a walled city, right? Whether those go back to the original or not, if they're not brought back, right? So it says, when they came from Golus, right? They found these cities, Vikichim, right? And they were Mekadesh, these cities. Varishayna Batlu, right? Misha Batal Aretz. But the other ones were Batal from the beginning. If they weren't resettled, right? And these recounted, then it was, even though it was walled during the times of Shub and Nun, right? These are when they came back from Babel. So these cities were doing. So they were sanctified. So Alma, Ksaver, Kedusha Rishona, Kicha L'Shaitza, Kicha L'Asilavo. It must be that the Kedusha, the original Kedusha, right, at the time of Shub and Nun, right, that sort of left. In other words, even though those are halachic walled cities in the beginning, but when they came back from Galus, right, only certain cities were mentioned and not all of them. So the Gemara says, no, this doesn't make sense. What
kind of kedusha are they talking about?
For something to have a status of a walled city. So, but it lost its status. I'm sorry.
With regard to Pitchum?
But right. But right, yes, exactly. Right, but over there, that was the Gemara there was talking. The Gemara in Erechim was talking about redeeming the the houses. And however, it says I've Ramin who Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosi says Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosi, right, the same one, right? The Chi'elu Bilvad Hayu, was only these ones that were listed. It was says Shishim Ir Kochavu Argo, right? It was says 60 cities of Ksiv Chol Eila Arim B'Tsuras Chayma Gabo. Right, so these were all considered walled cities. All 60 of them, not just the ones that are enumerated, but even the 60. Elo lama lo chachamim v'seilu. Rather, by they count those. Kshalu b'nei goylo matzu elu v'kuchim. Right, because when they came from Golos and they found these cities, so they sanctified it. So the Gemara says, "Kichum, they sanctified it." Right, turn the page. Hashta amri leitzricha lekadushay. Right, what do I mean? We said you don't have to make kaddish it. Right, elo matzos elu. Rather, they found these umanim, and they counted these. They counted the ones that they came back to. V'lo elu bilvad. Elo kol shetalocha b'sros b'yadecha me'avasecha shem kovas chamas mishubenun. Right. But rather, no, not just these, but rather anything which is a Masorah, right, from your fathers, that this certain city was a walled city from the days of Yeshua ben Nun, call mitzvahs halu noagim ba. All the mitzvahs of Bate Arechema, all the mitzvahs that are required in terms of selling houses in a walled city, right? You have a year to go ahead and redeem it. If you don't redeem it after a year, then it stays with a new buyer. Call mitzvahs halu noagim ba. We pray shekedusha rishayna kicha l'shaitza v'kicha lasi lava, because the kedusha remains forever and ever. So here we see it remains forever and ever. However, we had the other case of Rishon Rabbi Yossi, who says that only the ones that they sanctified. So what's going on here? I kashi the Rabbi Shmuel, Adi Rabbi Shmuel. So Gemara answers, no trade tonight. I live with the Rabbi Shmuel, two to the Rabbi Yossi. There's two different tonight. I live with the Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yossi. He really didn't only said one, not the other. It was Machlokas as to exactly what he said. Or if he by Zeba, Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Yossi, wasn't Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yossi. Rather, it was the opinion of Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Yossi. The time as we learned in the Brisa earlier, Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Yossi, Aimer Asher Leichema. We said that it has a wall. Right. In other words, the one it says even though it doesn't have now, but it had earlier. In other words, since it had the kedusha at one point in time of being a walled city, therefore kicha lasi lavo, it's sanctified as a walled city forever and ever. Fine. So that was that Mishnah. So now the Gemara,
no walled cities now.
right, in terms of
I mean, generally,
right,
there's no walled city, nothing stayed.
right, from those times. Yeah, I mean, what was
Sorry.
but Akko isn't over this. I don't know. I'm not sure. Okay, all right. So now the Gemara now takes a new direction. Now we're basically the next several blot are going to be darshaning from the Megillah. We're going to be darshaning the Megillah. So not a continuation of our Mishnah, but now we plug in here. So Zak the Gemara, we are the third last skinny line. So it says Vayibi me'achashverosh Amar Rabbi Levi v'Tema Rabbi Yechanan Dover Zemer Sos Rabbi Adeno. We have a Masara in our hands. Me'anshek Nas Lagadola Kol Magam Shenamar Vayihi Eino Ela Lashon Tsar. Anytime a pasuk says Vayihi, it's a lashon of tsar, of distress, of bad things to come, such as Vayibi me'achashverosh. Right? It says during the days of Achashverosh, Havi Haman. So now the Gemara is going to go through several examples of where it says Vayihi, and then it'll follow up with basically a pasuk or an expression of something that bad that occurred afterwards. So Vayibi me'achashverosh, Havi Haman. Vayibi me'shavat hashoftim. Shvat hashoftim by Rus Hayarov. It was a famine. Vayiki hachel adam lorov. Right, so it says over there, and Brachus, right, and then it came. I think this is before Kain Hevel, or this is before earlier. Was the pasuk? There's a lot of stuff in there. Yeah, I'm saying, and the Brachus.
End of the parsha.
And the parsha Brachus. It says right after that, Vayar Hashem ki riba ras adam. He saw that man sinned right before Noach, before they brought the Mabul. So that was Vayi, was before the Mabul, right? That's Vayi, Binsa, Mikadam. They come to the east, and so Havanivna Lano Ir. Then they want to go ahead. The Migdal Bavel, Vayi b'mei Merafel, and then it says Vayi b'mei Merafel. So Asa Muhammad, there was a war, the war amongst the kings. Vayi b'Yosa Yoshua, b'Yericho. Right, it says over there by he, and then it says v'chavar shlufa biyado. There was a malach over there holding a sword in front of him. Also, right, it showed it was something bad. By Hashem as Yeshua, but it says over there by he, it says vaylu b'nei Yisrael, and they rebelled. Right, vayi ishacha miram sayim. Right, Kiyaschana Hashem b'sagar rachma. However, Hashem loved Chana, but he did not give her any children, so that was the bad thing. Vayiki Zaki and Shmuel. It says Vayhi when Shmuel became older, and his sons. The bad thing was his sons. The tsar was his sons did not follow in his ways. Vayhi.
I don't understand the one about your Yoshua.
With the Charva Shlufa Biyado.
Yeah.
Right. So
I
even
mean-
right. So it wasn't, and ultimately it wasn't a bad thing. It was a malach, right? But I guess it was maybe
No,
you know-
the Medrash says that he was Mavatal Torah that night.
right. So that's what it came. It says if you
Mavatal
go,
Ha'emek,
we just said it before, right? Did you come for now? Or did you come earlier? Right. So that was right. You know.
Yeah.
So right. But even though not necessarily, it wasn't destruction. Right. Yeah.
It's not clear from the.
Right. Exactly. Vayi David l'chol Vayi David l'chol derachav maskil Hashem imo. Right, this is when it's talking about the David. However, that was the forecasting Vayi Shol Oyein as David. Right, he was eyeing David. Basically, he was going to go ahead and go against David. Vayikishav Melech Beso, and he said his house Rak Atale Sivna Abais, and over there also the introduction that David was not going to go ahead and build the base of Mikdash. So Vayihi is bad. All right, so those are all examples of, I don't know, around 10 examples or so of Vayihi, hinting at Lashon Sar. Voksi Vayi B'Yom Hashmini, and it wasn't the 8th day. Vitanya, this is by the Milum, by the inauguration by Vitanya. Oisa Yom, Haisa Simcha L'Dinei Kodesh Baruch Hu. Right, it was a great Simcha. I'm sorry. We said it before. Yeah. So he said that was the fight between the kings, right? So he said, such a simcha on that day, on the 8th day, or the last day of the inauguration, right? That it was like the happiness of when the Shema arts were created, when the heavens and the earth were created. And Ksiv Hach, it says over here, Ksiv Hasan says it there, right? It was one day. So how is it bad? So Gemara says no. Hashchiv nadav aviyu. So nadav aviyu, they died on that day. They brought their foreign fire. So therefore, maybe that was bad. Oh, okay. So I'll give you other examples. Baksi vayi b'shmainim shana v'arba miyaz shana. Right? It says over there, the 400th year, they build the bayis. Baksi vayi kashir ro Yaakov es Rachel. When Yaakov saw Rachel, baksi vayir vayi erev vayi boku yoybechad. Right, so each one of those days says Vayihi. All days of the creation, those are good days, right? There was no tsar. Some Ravashi called Vayihi ikahachi v'ikahachi. You're right. So let's rephrase our original statement. Anytime it says Vayihi, it can be good or bad, right? Ikahachi v'ikahachi. Vayihi b'mei. If it says Vayihi b'mei, eino ela lashon tsar. That was the lashon tsar. And chamisha Vayihi b'mei, and there were 5 Vayihi b'meis. Found.
Do we quote them all above?
No, so we're going to quote right now. Vayi b'mei Achashverosh, which we quoted, right? That was Haman. Vayi b'mei Shvot HaShoftim. That was the Rav. That was the famine by Rus, right? Right. Vayi b'mei Raphael, right? That was the kings. So we did those 3. Now here are 2 new ones. Vayi b'mei Achaz. For Achaz, and it says that there was a war, right? This is Vayi b'mei Yehoyakim, which was also referring to the destruction of the Bayis. So therefore, those are those 5 examples of Vayi b'mei, which were Eino El Lashon Sar. And Amr, I believe there was similar. Something there was we have a seinu, another similar expression. This is also passed on to our, from our forefathers. Amutz ve'amtzia achim havu. Amutz and Amatzia, right? They were brothers. So my Kamash Milan, what's the point of that? Okay? So they're brothers, fine. So Kiha, like this lesson, any kala, any daughter-in-law, right? That is tsnua in the house of her father-in-law, right? Should be merit to have come from her kings and prophets. Midalan, we know that from Tamar. The pasuk says, "Vayira Yehuda v'chshever l'zayin." Right, and Yehuda saw her, and he thought he mistakenly thought she was a zona, right? He kasta panel, right, because her face was covered. So it was a mishum kasta panel the extra zona. Right, so the Gemara's asking, right? So this is right where we know. So he says, but because she covered her face, right? So he considered it a zona, right? Zonas are opposite, right? Zonas are they reveal themselves, right? The harlots, they reveal themselves, they don't cover up. El mishum the kasta panaves chamel havi yodala. Since when she lived in his house, she was always covered. She was always snua. Therefore, he never knew what she looked like, right? And therefore, once he saw in the streets, he saw the face of who else reveals their face in the street besides his own. V'yadala zachza v'yatzimena melachim and nevim. Therefore, she was like to have kings and nevim come from her. Melachim and David, and melachim is David and nevim. David and Levi, because then how do you know nevim came from her? David and Levi. Besides, we have a say no. Amos the Achima. So one was and Vayiksiv Chazon Yeshua ben Amos, right? So Yeshua came from Amos, who was a Navi. So therefore, or Yeshua was the Navi, right? So it came from, I guess his uncle was Amatzia, right? Who was from Yehuda, who was from descendant from David. So therefore, there was David and also the prophets of Yeshaya. So therefore, both those stem from Tamar. Not Tamar. Amar Levi is there. That's what I had to pause it for. I had to wait. What? Tamar. That's Tamar, right?
No, that's Tamar. No, it's Tamar. Right, you do that.
No, it's like Moshe, right?
What is it?
Well, of course it's Tamar.
It's Tamar.
Tamar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like Moshe, right? The Amar Rabbi Levi. Shimon, right? It's always usually the second one. Furthermore, is another thing that was Masorah that was taught, a tradition. We have said Makom Aron Eina Min Amida, right? The place where the Aron stood did not take up space, it did not take up any measurement in this world. And Tana we learned Aron Shas Moshe Yeshla Esra was the Kol Ruach. So the one from Moshe Rabbeinu had as the Kol Ruach, right? It was 10 out each side, right? Whether it was the beams or Ksiv also of Livrei Advir Esrim Ama Oirech, and inside the space there was 20 amos, right? Uksiv Kanafa Kruv Echad Esr Amos, Kanafa Kruv Echad Esr Amos. Each one was 10 amos. So now the question is: so if you had 10 amos going out at each side from the Aron, so obviously the Aron itself had to take up space. That the entire space was 20. But it says that the entire space was 20 and you had 10 from each side. So where did the Aron stand, right? It must have been, it didn't take up space, right? So therefore, it stood miraculously, did not take up space. Fine. Now, Rabbi Yonasan, now we'll have several different Amoraim, how they basically began darshan in the Megillah. So Rabbi Yonasan, when he would start darshaning about Megillah Esther, he would start from over here. It says, the Kamti Aleim, the Chule. So bring the pasuk of pasuk Chavtes, the 29th pasuk brought in this, right? This is from Yeshaya. So it says over there, the Kamti Aleim, the Keresi, the Babel, cut off the Shem, the Shor, the Nin, the Neched, no Masha. So Shem is Ksav, all right. So in other words, what did he cut off in Bavel? So Shem is the Ksav, the writing, the writings there, and Sher is Lashon, also the Lashon, the Babylonian Lashon. They cut off Nin Malchus, and the Malchus was cut off. V'neched Vashti, and Vashti was cut off. And all these things basically was prophesizing the downfall, right, of Bavel. And the Persians, right? But Rishmal Bar Nachmani Pasal Pisachim Parsha says no Tagas and notes. So how do you darshan? In the place of the thorn, there'll be like a rose, and in place of the sarpad, right, which is a nettle, right, will come a hadas, will come a myrtle, right? This, I guess, from a bad plant to a good plant. So tachas notes tachas was in place of Hamona Russia. Who made himself like a bazar. The pasuk says right. So it says over there that basically making himself like all the thorns and the branches. He made himself an object to be worshipped. And then it says Yaleh, and right, Rosh. So that Mordechai is referring to Mordechai Shenikra Rosh B'chol B'samim, who was called the head of all the B'samim. Now, as opposed to V'yata Kachol B'samim Rosh Mar. Dror. So it says take from yourself B'samim from our Targum, and how do you, and the Taicha of Mar Dror is Mari Dechai, Mordechai, right? Mordechai, right? So therefore he's a spice. Mordechai was a spice. And Tachas Hasarpad, that's Tachas Vashti Rasha, Bas Benosh and Nebuchadnezzar, who was the granddaughter, right? The daughter of the son of Nebuchadnezzar, Rasha Shasaraf Fidos, Beis Hashem, who basically burned the Beis Hashem. right? The area where the resting place of Beis Hashem, the Chassid pasuk says, Refidaso Zok, right? His resting place was golden, so therefore the golden place was burnt by Vashti and Yala Hadass and Hadass in this place. Esther Tzedekah Shenika Hadassah, she was called Hadassah. Shamar Vayomenes Hadassah, and he raised Hadassah. He brought her up, right? Vayomenes Hadassah, right? Fine, and then. All right. I just Vayala Hashem L'Shem. Right. Fine. Next passage. It says Vayala Hashem L'Shem. Is that Mikra Megillah? That's referring to it will be mentioned the Shem Hashem. Is that Mikra Megillah? La'is Eilam. Right. Forever in the world. La'ikrais. La'is Eilam. La'ikarais. Eli Purim. That means Purim will never be cut off. And Rabbi Shimon Levi Pasal Piskal Parshas Mehachi, he actually darshes from a different place. It says there, Vayikasher Sas Hashem Aleichem Lahiti Veschem Ken Yasis Lari Eschem, right? Just like he'll happy to do good, also to be happy when he'll give the evil people that which they deserve.
There's a much more of this saying that Yeshayahu prophesied about the
downfall.
incident
Yes,
of-
right, exactly. Right.
He was included.
Right.
Well, he definitely Masaba Bell. I mean, he definitely
Right.
prophesied about the downfall of Bubba. The question is,
No,
It's a
I'm
question.
talking
No,
about Esther and
Yes.
about Haman.
Yeah, that was the
darshaning is
right. That's the darshan, right? When he's talking about myrtles and these hadassim, isn't it? He's actually referring to Esther and Mordechai, but it alluded into the lashon of his statement. And then it says over there, so of course it says, "Mi chadi Hakadosh Baruch Hu l'Pardosh Hashem." This Hakadosh Baruch Hu rejoice in the falling of Hashem. But see, the pasuk says, "V'seis lifnei acholos v'ayrim hodu laHashem kilam chasdav." Right, referring to the B'tzias Tzrayim, it says, "Hodu laHashem kilam chasdav." I'm Rabbi Yochanan playing Ma'alon Emar Kitov. No, how come doesn't say Hodu Hashem Kitov kilam chasdav? So, b'hodah zol lefi shein Hakadosh Baruch Hu samel b'falasan shel Rashayim, because Hakadosh Baruch Hu is not happy with the downfall of the Rashayim, even though there still is his creation. Rabbi Yochanan says, Rabbi Yochanan Ma'adich el zeh kol layla, they didn't come to one another. So bikshu malachei hashareis lo imar shira. They want to say shira that night. Hakadosh Baruch Hu, my siyad v'asam yom v'atam ha'imdim shira. My creation is drowning in sea, and you guys want to go ahead and say shira. So therefore, we see Hakadosh Baruch Hu doesn't rejoice. So rather, what does it mean? Amar Rabbi Elazar, hu enosas abal acherim masis. Right? Hakadosh Baruch Hu was rejoicing, but he caused others to rejoice during this time. The pasuk says, "Ken yasis like hasiv yasus." Right? It says, "Yasi, they will rejoice, and others they will rejoice." Who's going to rejoice? Not Hashem was rejoicing. Right? He caused others to rejoice, and that was referring to the other nations when they heard that the Jews were going to be killed. So therefore, there was rejoicing by the other nations. So Hakadosh Baruch Hu caused others to rejoice because they thought the Jews were going to be destroyed, and then it turns out it was reversed. So Shema Mina. Rabbi Yava Bar Kan, the pasuk la Pischal la Parshas he darshan for it. Mahachat says over there, la Adam shetoy lefanav nasan chachma v'das v'simcha. So it says someone who's tov lefanav nasan chachma v'das v'simcha. Is Mordechai Tzaddik, right? That's referring to Mordechai Tzaddik. And then the pasuk says l'chayta nasan inyan lasa v'chros and shine. Or chayta, a sinner, that is referred to. They give him a matters of gathering and coming together. Haman, that's referred to Haman. And to place good for Hashem. Mordechai v'Esther. Vatisam Esther as Mordechai obeys Haman, right? Because she, the place the good. They're referring to Esther placed the good, i.e., Mordechai in the base Haman. Right? She replaced him. And Rabbah Bar Ufin Pasal of Yisachar Parashasam Yachi when he was in Darshan Megillah, so he definitely came from there. The pasuk says, "V'samti kisi be'elam bavati misham melech v'sar." So it says you go ahead and place his throne, his keys in Elam, and it will destroy the king and the sarim and the officers. The melech is Vashti, referring to Vashti because she came from Nebuchadnezzar. The sarim and the princes Haman v'Esther Hezbollah. That's referring to Haman and his 10 sons. All right, we'll stop here. Tomorrow, Mr. Shem, we'll continue from here. I might not be here. Reese, Mr. Shem will be here, but continue darshaning the Megillah.